Welcome to the Breakthrough Moments podcast, a podcast where challenges meet opportunities. I'm Harold, and together with my co-host Lasse, we explore stories of innovators, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs, and how they turn obstacles into game-changing breakthroughs. Get ready for insights that inspire and lessons that last. Subscribe now, and let's dive into the moments that define success. Welcome to today's episode of the Breakthrough Moments podcast. Today our guest is Neil Cunningham, the CEO of Civic Group. He's bringing over 20 years of experience in the intelligent transportation systems industry. Quite an interesting thing and also a bit of a mouthful, but Neil will be able to bring us through what that actually is. Neil has built his success on the foundation of customer service, but also continuous innovation. And he is super passionate about living in the moment, but also looking for and seizing opportunities. So join us for today's episode to dive into Neil's story and what he has to share. So with that, Neil, welcome to the episode.
Hey Harold, how are you? How's things?
We had a bit of a chat for, I think it was about 5-6 weeks ago, where we got to know each other. And in the meantime, hopefully I've been able to prepare. But with this, we're trying to have a chat where the listeners and viewers can learn more about your story, because I found it to be quite interesting. You have this interesting duality between trust, delegation, team culture, innovation, and seizing of opportunities. But for those that don't know you, who's Neil Cunningham, and also what's Civic Group? If you could give us a short introduction.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm a simple man, electrician by trade, who since I came out of school, I went straight onto the building site, worked for 4 years, and I saved my time with a really good company, left there. And a few of my friends were working for a different company, and I said, sure, this could be a bit of fun. They were looking for people to join, looking for electricians. So I joined, initially doing some street lighting works, but they had a traffic signal division, which I really wanted to get involved in. Just that new technology, just something different. So I got involved in that, and again, between learning about traffic signals, traffic engineering, and working with your friends, it was a great number of years. I'd always say to people, work with your mates for a few years, because it's like going out every Saturday night is like every day, because you're having fun. Obviously there's a time comes when you have to grow up a little bit, but I suggest you should do it for a few years. So then I suppose leaving that past behind me, I decided I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do it for myself, and that's where Civic was born. Along with my ex-partner, business partner, we built Civic over the next number of years.
Yeah, and because I remember you mentioned this in terms of getting into traffic lights and traffic systems. Is that what Civic Group started out, or how would you describe what is Civic Group?
So I suppose initially it was made up of two divisions. One was facilities management, facilities maintenance, where we had some contacts in that industry, so we were able to take on electricians and plumbers and air conditioning guys, and do general maintenance around retail parks and shopping centres. But the other side of it was from my background, which was traffic. That was the innovation bit. That was where in my previous life, we just completed a big project where the Lewis, which is our tram system, went into Dublin, and I was involved in the fairly innovative bit to integrate the tram system into the Dublin city traffic lights. It was really good, and from that, when we started up Civic, I was kept part of that world by the owner of the tram system, which was our Transport Infrastructure Ireland, which kind of held me on because of my knowledge. That gave me the springboard to launch the traffic side of the business, because it kind of funded that for a few years to allow us to grow. The traffic side of the business, it's a high barrier to entry, because it's a big safety thing on the street. Nobody can just enter into traffic lights. You have to really know what you're doing, and you have to have the knowledge and the trust of your client. So it takes a long time. But yeah, essentially two sides of the business, which we still have at the moment, still both sides functioning very, very well. Most people would say, how does putting air conditioning units fit with also doing traffic lights? But it works.
There, my video got disappeared for a moment. Right. I think we're back, so I think we can do the edits.
Yeah, let's go
for it. Maybe it's just 2 seconds of blank. I'm just going to take note of this for the editing team. The interesting aspect of when stuff like this happens. So let's pick up. So that's interesting. Yeah, I definitely see that having that connection helps gain entry into that type of industry, because when you mentioned it last time, I was like, getting into that of a, let's say, centrally controlled, often governmentally controlled type of industry, it's like you have these procurement processes that take ages. But like, how was it when you got started in transportation and with Civic, in terms of how the environment was compared to how the environment of the company is today? Like, what's changed? Would you say?
In the industry or in the company?
You can answer how you want to say it. Both.
Well, I suppose the industry well, I say has not much has changed, and I think that was their biggest annoyance. People were just moving boxes. They were buying a product off, a company in Austria or Germany and selling it to a local authority here in Ireland, and it was all about. It was too easy. It was too simple, and it was too. There has to be a better way, and that's the angle that we came in at. We wanted to shake things up. We wanted to put a bit of passion, put a bit something different into the industry. It was lacking innovation. All they were doing was reselling boxes, and you learn nothing from that. There's no risk. It's just putting a badge on it and putting it on the street. So that's where we wanted to change the industry. And from a company that was small, it takes a long time to do that, because the big players will always put you down. They'll try their best to stamp you out. We only look back at the Aer Lingus and British Airways with the whole Ryanair scenario where they tried to squash them down. But you have to stay strong. You have to keep getting back up all the time. And eventually they'll either run away or they'll get bored. And that's kind of what's happened. They've realised that we're not going away. And the software that we've built with our engineering team and the new products that we're putting out there, they're no longer trying to knock them, because they know we're here now. So both have changed. Our business has changed because we've become a lot more innovative, and as I said, we took on a software engineering team because we felt that we had to keep that in house in order to, we didn't want to be part of this, bringing in a third-party provider and then having to wait in line. If a customer wants something, let's do it now. Let's give it to them. That's what they want. And again, that's our investment. It's R&D. So yeah, both have changed. We've changed as a business because since we took on the software division, which was back in 2017, and then the industry has changed. We've brought more innovation to the Irish industry, which we'll touch on later, which we're bringing to our new market in Lithuania.
Yeah. So you started out by having on like the lights and different things, and then traffic. What's the product portfolio like today? Like, what you mentioned that those two things are still something you offer, but like, are there other things that Civic basically offers today? Like after having the software engineering team and other things in terms of the past 20 years?
Well, I suppose the software is the big thing for us now. We offer that to our clients. We've a suite of products which go under the brand name of Ipsum, and they bring, I suppose, efficiencies to organisations, especially municipalities, county councils. Yeah. We're able to bring data to them, where from assets that sit on the road, they're now able to extract data from them, which is what they need. And that again itself is a tough challenge, because I've had conversations with people where they go, oh, I don't understand, why do I need that data? And you're going, you don't need it now, but in 3 years' time you're gonna go, I wish I knew, I wish I had. I says the Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the next best time is today. You don't need to know what you want the data for. Start capturing it, and then your team will extract it and they will get the value. So that was our biggest challenge, trying to get people to go, why do I need that data? Why? And that we're getting over that now. Like we've hundreds of sensors across Ireland, even in America and Europe, pulling this data, and some are on the journey of, they're now using it with their public realm team, they're using it with their active travel team. Others are at the beginning of their journey where they're going, we still don't know what to do with it, but at least we have it. And then there's the others that just tinfoil cap, they just won't get it, and it's only until somebody comes into them and says one day, do you know all them sensors that were out there, send us that data, and they go, I don't have it. And they'll go, why? Oh, I just thought it was too expensive. Traffic data is next to financial data in terms of cost. It's huge because, there's so much can be used from traffic data in your planning, in your urban development, your rural development. So just start capturing it because you will need it. And it's together. So our software division has changed our business that way because we're able to offer this new product, whereas our competitors are just reselling a product that someone else has developed. So they don't have control of it. So it's
That's interesting because the funny coincidence is that a couple of days ago, I had a podcast episode with a gentleman that was talking about that his biggest challenge was the short-sightedness of businesses and corporations. And what you're talking about is in line with what he said in terms of trying to look for and be more far-sighted in terms of what can we do today, or what do we do today, and what's the byproduct of that, and how could that become valuable into the future in terms of the data and the traffic data. So that's interesting. But in terms of just like going for the point when you started to having this and expanding this, it's quite a significant, let's say, innovation given the market standard. Like from, as you mentioned, where all the other players in the market, they basically just resell the product from a separate manufacturing company. Like, how was the process of ingraining that into the company in terms of innovation? Because it was quite a highlight when we spoke last, like innovation. That's super important. What's the approach?
Yeah, well, I suppose it comes from the top down, and I've always been one to push things, to try and do something different, to try and do better. And then when you build that team around you, and they come with the same passion, it's just easy because they have the same mindset. Like it's so good to see our software engineering team work with our hardware engineering team, because it's you've got this. The guys go out to the street to try and get something working. They can ring our in-house software guys. They're working together. They're solving problems. Like we're actually on a project tonight, which will be down on a motorway, where we have our software team working with our hardware team to get solutions, to get data in, and it's like petrol on a fire. It just keeps igniting because there's no limitations when you have it in-house. Because when you're bringing in a third party provider, there's always budgets. How much can we spend? How much can we afford to spend on this third party? When it's in house, that goes out the window because you still have to pay salaries and there's overheads, but it's in house. It's people are driven because they feel full ownership. They're not developing something that we don't actually own because a third party may have the IP. It's ours. And then they feel passionate about bringing that to their customers, because there's nothing better than going to a customer and saying, look what we built. This is ours. Little old Civic have built this. And that just keeps the fire going. It's great. But it comes from not just me, the team. They want it. They see it. Again, that's another thing. It takes a long time to build up that set of team that have the same passion, that want to see the same outcome as what you're.
Yeah. So is this something then you've embedded into, let's say, from the very beginning in terms of just trying to screen applicants in the recruitment process to onboarding to all of this? Or is it more in just the daily natural practice inside of the company?
Yeah, I suppose you're always looking for that edge, and someone that, not everyone's going to have it. Everyone's different, and that's fine. The world would be very boring if we were all the same, and we'd probably argue till the night, So it's no harm. Some lads come in and they're happy to do what they do, and they're not really over into getting to the innovate. Other lads, that's all they think about. What ifs? Why can't we? And and it takes a balance of both. So you're always watching for it at interviews, or if you hear an engineer is thinking of moving, you'll always say, well, we know they've done this and this, so they may add value here. But yeah, it's different. We don't purposely go out to try and find that. We kind of, it's about the bigger person, and sometimes you get lads in and engineers in, and they'll just grip onto this. They'll come in without that passion, and then suddenly they'll realise, wow, we could do this or we could do that. So it's not something we it's not a tick in the box, but it's
Yeah. It's something you look for nonetheless, but not something that is built into the structure when you look for people.
Yeah, yeah. We like a mix of
Yeah.
everybody, and some are interested, some aren't. There's room for everybody in the world, so and it's the same with Civic.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's. I think, like personally, I'm quite analytical, and I often tend to maybe put things a bit too much into boxes in terms of like it has to be this way and stuff like that. But I think having that more dynamic, more like okay, we have this objective, we have this where we want to go. Like how can we be a bit more flexible and nimble in terms of actually getting there? And it sounds like you guys have a nice balance. Like we would appreciate this, but we've built the internal culture in such a way that it is structured to inspire at some point nonetheless. Like inspire to obsess over customer service, inspire to be interested in innovation. Like how can we do this? Not could we do it? It's like what needs to be done to be able to do it. Like is there any in terms of that innovation, because I think this is a highlight that I want to bring out. So trying to find your golden key or take the page out of your book and put it into mine, right. But also the listeners. Do you have any, if some company wants to be more innovative, based on your perspective and what you've been able to achieve internally in terms of culture, because it sounds like the culture is like people are looking for ways to be more innovative. Like, where do you think they should start?
Well, it's the people. Like it's like I mean, I this isn't about me. I haven't built this. The team have built this. Like I probably certain parts of me would be very similar. Like tick box. My neurodiverse will get in the way of a lot of things. That I need to know. I need to know. But I think it's just the people. It's if you bring the right people together, this will happen. And it's investing in people, and it's hiring the right people and making sure that, like, I mean, they often say about a bad apple will ruin the whole bunch. It can do. So it's about making sure that you select the right people with the right, I suppose, just that'll fit, that'll work, and they'll do the rest. They will do the rest if you give them the freedom. If you say to somebody, like, I mean, if you go in and you're micromanaging a team every day, they will never be innovative because they're just so afraid to take any chance. They're afraid to spend any time on or order a part because blah blah blah. It's you just have to let them go and see what comes back.
Yeah, but that's scary though for a lot of entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs. Like, how can I trust the people around me? Like, have you ever felt that? And if so, like, what did you do, or how can someone be more trusting in their employees? Because I think that's basically what it drew down to.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm 20 years in Civic, so the first probably 10, 12, were challenging. You're watching every bit of a cost. You were, like, I mean, you were the cleaner, you were the washer upper, you did everything because you just tried to save money to grow the business. We grew organically, so every penny we made, we put back in, we invested. So them times I would say I wouldn't have been very open to, innovations of it, although it was in me, but you still have to be watching costs. We weren't mature. I wasn't mature enough as a person. I was too busy working in the business to see it. And it was only when I was able to take myself out of that and work on the business where I started to see, oh, hang on a minute, why am I doing this? Why aren't we doing it this way? But that takes a journey, and it's and I suppose all the challenges that brings, and it brought me along highs and lows along the way, because you just literally didn't. Like, you didn't know next week what was going to happen, the week after what was going to happen. It was just, you were just fighting fires because you were too busy focused on the small thing as opposed to looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah. So in terms for you, was it then that you got to the point where the business was at a size in terms of turnover and predictability that you found the capacity to then quote unquote escape the trenches and look more at the full picture, or was it something else?
I think looking back, and not a lot of people would know this, but I think it got to one day. I say probably 2000 and maybe 17, maybe 18. I remember coming in one morning and it was dark. It was winter. It was probably about 5:30 in the morning, and sitting in my office. My office was a 3 by 3. Very square box. I labelled it my prison cell because that's where I felt it was for 20 years. But I sat there one morning with a business that was doing very, very well, but I did not know how to manage it. I did not know how to bring it to the next level. I describe it as a car without a steering wheel. It was going along, but at some point it was going to crash because I didn't have the skills to do that. And I remember that realization that morning. I sat on the ground and I cried like a child on my own in the office because I didn't know what to do. I'd nobody to turn to. I'd nobody to ask, how do I do this or what do I do? Everybody came to me looking for the answers. And it was it's a scary moment because it's a moment that you feel you are on your own here. What do you do? And I remember I said to myself, right, it was probably about 6:30 at this stage, 6:45, and it says people are going to start coming in here. I need to get myself up, get myself sorted, because they're going to look to me when they walk in the door, and they're going to want to see the smile, and they're going to want to see everything's great, and you have to do it. But inside you're dying. Inside it's killing you. But you have to keep fighting. And that morning, I picked up the phone and I rang a friend of mine who was, I always say, is like my business daddy, my business father. He's been with me since day one. And I said, look, I'm in trouble. This thing is just growing, and I don't have the skill set to steer it. I says, I need somebody. And with that, he came in within a few days, and he spent a few days in the business and was able to guide me and make some changes. We brought another person in to consult for a few years to kind of put some shape. And I think the lesson is there, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't leave it that long. Just
Yeah.
put your hand up and say, I have a problem, because otherwise it'll just consume you and it'll ruin you. It'll kill your
Yeah.
passion. It'll kill everything. So that was a turning point for me when I reached out, got help, and then that allowed me over the course of a few years to take myself out of the day-to-day business and work on it. So then I could look and go, why can't we? What if? Because I had that capacity in your head. You have that space. You have that free time. Where you can do that. Whereas before, every bit of your day was taken up with either operations, accounts, the day-to-day mundane stuff. When that's not, entrepreneurs, CEOs, whatever you want to call it, that's not what, if you're in that position, you're there because your brain allows you to be there. I think they say a lot of CEOs have neurodiverse and because they want things a certain way, they want, you'll find, life will find you a path to that position. And if you're trying to do, fit a square peg into a round hole, eventually it just won't work. It will never go. You're just pushing. So I think that was the turning point for me, and that's when the passion came out, and I started really enjoying work and offloading all that responsibility to the management team.
Yeah, because I was about to ask that. So was that one, it was the realization that, okay, shit will hit the fan if I don't do something different. So you got in,
Exactly.
you had the courage to then basically ask for help, and you brought in help. It restructured how you envisioned the operations and a couple of things, how they were done, and then basically gradually offloading responsibility that you had over to the management team. Did you bring in someone else, like an operating manager, or did you already have an operating manager at that point?
We shifted things around. As I said, my business daddy, my business father, who came in that time, he took over as general manager for a number of years. We then promoted up one of the people in accounts. We seen that this person had really good organizational skills as well as commercial skills. So from an operations point of view, there was a perfect fit there. So we brought someone in to manage the operations of the business, and then over time, that person went from operations to being the general manager of the business. Because again, that person had worked in all the departments and understood how the business ran, and that allowed me even more to work on the business, more to come away. So literally, my day to day was about where we are in 3 to 5 years time, as opposed to where we are next week, and that's so important. But that was difficult. Jesus, don't get me wrong. Like you're giving away, like to give away your power, which is tough. Like there was, like I
Yeah.
mean, you're giving somebody your child. You know what I mean? And that's what it is.
Yeah, you
And
do.
it's it's very, very difficult to do. And I remember at the time when that person came into the position, so I was obviously CEO and the general manager, and we were for the first few months we were fighting like cat and dog. Like it was literally, it just every day was something. And I kept going to myself, why is this? How? Like, because this person is a lovely person and we get on so well, but when the two positions collided, it was like. And I remember one day going, right, I can't do this any longer. This gotta stop because it's crazy. And I said, okay, I brought the person in and I said, look it, whatever it is, whatever decision you make, you're in charge. I will back you 100%. I says, in here, in our own conveyance, we can have our scuffles, we can have our disagreements, we can have our, because you will, and that's good. You need to challenge each other. You need someone beside you who will challenge you, who won't always just say yes.
Yeah.
So it says, in here, in the confines of our office, we can have that. But out with the team, we're back to back. We back each other 100%, whatever happens. And from that day on, all changed. It was like night and day. It's suddenly I got happier because I wasn't arguing every day. And that person was much happier because they weren't arguing every day. And don't get me wrong, there was still and there still is, we still have our moments where I disagree or they disagree, and that's good. That's life. But from that day on, it changed, and the culture changed in the business because that again, owner operators tend to see everything as either negative because it's a cost, or you're spending the money. Why are you spending? Whereas you bring in somebody who doesn't actually have any ownership of the business, they see it as, and I suppose as well, the age group was changed, and it was a younger person who had empathy, which I've never had, and that person taught me empathy. I couldn't even spell it back then, never mind know what it was, whereas to understand that, people have problems outside of work, and we have to understand that. People will ring up saying my child is sick, I can't come in today. If you'd have told me that 14 years ago, I would have went, what do you mean? You have to come to work. Now, okay, your child's sick, you have to stay at home. That's it. It's life. And that was another big change. Seeing something from different person's eyes and learning that. So again, it's if for people coming through this journey, it's very difficult to say, this is what to do. I think you still have to go through them pain steps, and I don't think there's ever a way of skipping the queue. You may not have to stay there as long by listening to advice, but I still think you have to go through it to get that scar, get that, so you always remind yourself, I'm never going back there. Because if you never go through it, you'll always never know what it was like to be there. So I think you need to go through it at a certain point and try and get out of it as quick as possible, because it's not healthy for the business, or it's not healthy for you. But if you're that way inclined, get yourself out of the business and let someone else run it for you. You deal with the 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's several points that you bring up here. One is the actual challenge of success. Because a lot of people talk about how do you handle failure and how all these things. It's learning opportunities, but when you now describe it, to me it sounds like you're actually going on this trajectory. You're going upwards. Things are seemingly from the outside going good, but then internally it's a mess. I don't have control and going through those motions. But I also agree to the fact that in leadership you need to have this unified front to the rest of the company. You need to have be there. You need to have the support, be the supportive of everyone, and that we on the top we agree, so that people that in the rest of the organization don't see there's a shit show on the top. They're arguing, they're fighting, and all these things that's going to destabilize the company overnight.
Absolutely.
But I also agree that having that, let's say, person beside you that you can behind closed doors argue, they can challenge you, or you can challenge each other. I think also that it's super, super important. Luckily, I do have that with my COO. He's not a very, let's say, the agreeable person in terms of personality traits. So I have a bit of extra there, but I think like without it, you wouldn't be able to grow as fast as you do, or evolve or learn as fast as you do, because you need that feedback, and that, especially that honest feedback that that type of person often can give. So it's fully in line in terms of what you're saying there. This was a bit of the, let's say that you skipped ahead in terms of a couple of the questions and the things that I wanted to go through. You bit of merged them. But what I want to then go over to, and you give a bit of a hint of it in the beginning, and that was the initiative outside of Ireland in Lithuania. What was it that made you look outside your own country and going internationally? Like, what was the process like? Was it external requests, or what was the process like in terms of actually taking that step?
I suppose our general manager is from Lithuania. We have two other guys in the office here, two other girls in the office, I should say, are from Lithuania. So there is a culture there, and it's a really nice culture. It's I suppose when I looked at potential, our general manager, the potential of that person going home eventually, there was always a plan in the back of my mind to, retain the knowledge and retain people as much as possible. So that came as a conversation when our general manager said that, look, they were thinking about going home and it was the right time for them in their life and situation. And I says, yeah, grand, perfect. Well, let's do what we done in Lithuania. Like, why not? I'd already looked at the country. I'd done a bit of research. I think it's very similar to the market we're in now, except from an ITS, intelligent transportation point of view. They're probably a couple of years behind us, which means that we can help them, we can bring learnings, we can bring all the history that we've done in Ireland, we can help with that. The culture, lovely culture, it's just a beautiful country. Everything, when I thought about it, it just ticked boxes and it was going, yeah. Okay, the winters are cold, very cold, but the summers are absolutely beautiful. So we said, look, and again, what we're doing here is, if it looks like it'll make sense, well, let's give it a go. I'd rather give something a go than look back in maybe 4 or 5 years' time and say,
and regret not doing it. Yeah,
we should have done that, shouldn't we? Like, I mean, why didn't we? Like, what have you got to lose? Like, really, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
You're gonna learn from it no matter what, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. You're gonna learn from it. So just do it. Okay, there's a bit more work involved, there's a bit more travel, but what else would you be doing? We're in business to be challenged. We're in business to grow. We're in business to do this. Don't if you're putting off opportunity, you're killing your passion. Always try and grow. Yeah. And I remember speaking to someone years ago, and they said that to me. Said, if your business wants to grow, don't stop it. If you stop it, you'll kill it.
Yeah.
And if there's opportunities there and it looks like it'll make sense, give it a go. What's the worst can happen?
Yeah. So basically, so if I understood it correctly, you had a lot of people in the staff that were from Lithuania and were thinking about moving back home, and instead of, let's say, losing these employees and assets that the company truly had, like, copy paste the company, start up an office there, and help do the same thing in Lithuania as you're doing locally.
Exactly. Like, we had the processes in place, we have the software in place, we have the knowledge. Like our business, there's no borders between our business. We can it's a service-based business with retained knowledge, and we just have to transfer that to a different country and set up, and obviously you go through all your compliance and stuff like that. But there's nothing stopping us. The risk is, if you don't do it, you lose the knowledge that you have in the business, because that person goes home. If you can't provide employment for them, they're going to find somewhere else, and you lose all that knowledge. For what? For the sake of not giving it a chance and giving it a go. I mean, I'd rather fail and say I've given it a go than look back and say, we won't try that. So so that was the reason behind it. And is it gonna be? It's gonna be a long journey. Yeah, like, I mean, we've been over there now, opened up about 6-7 months. We've official office over there, and it's gonna take time, but we have that time. Ireland's running well. The team are here. They can support the growth. I have more time to be over there developing the business and growing it. So Why not? Like I'm not too old to give it a go.
That's the next thing, which was you had a bit of a realization in terms of living life to the fullest,
Mm.
and it sounds like even though like this now is it's a whole new quote unquote chapter, like exploring the unknown and actually building something like that. Because I remember you said that like when I was turning 50, or
Not
something like
50 yet.
that. I'm trying to recall what did you say?
I'm not 50 yet. Still only 49.
Only 49, about to turn 50,
That's
and you
better,
had this
Aaron.
realization that okay, I want to live life to the fullest. Like you had some sort of like, what am I doing? How can I
Hmm.
have more joy on a daily basis? Like, what was it that led to that? Let's say contemplation. Was it that you were looking at the calendar where I'm approaching 50? Was there something else that basically
Um,
pushed towards that direction?
I don't know. I suppose we'd come through a few years of the craziness with COVID and everything
Yeah.
else that was going on. I'd also my business partner had exited at the time, which was a lot of I won't say stress, but you know when you're unraveling a business partnership, that can bring its own stresses in to line.
Mm.
Then we got COVID, and then I suppose we ended up in late last year, and you're kind of saying to yourself, you know, where am I going? Like what am I doing? What's next? And then the realization was something has to change. I
Mm.
am I going to be ready for the next? Am I going to be ready for the next movement, the next whatever next opportunities coming on? Yeah, just my head. There was a lot of noise. I don't know what it was, but I suppose it takes you a few months of uncertainty, and then you say, right, okay, well, how am I going to reset? And in me, it was, I remember waking up one morning going, okay, I need to start eating healthier. So gave up milk, drank milk for the whole life, gave it up. Suddenly realized I don't need milk. Started drinking healthier, got off the coffee, was drinking maybe 9 cups of coffee a day. I drink 2 cups of coffee a week now, and that's because
Mm.
that's a guilty pleasure. I'll have a cup of a Saturday or something like that. I drink matcha tea. I drink matcha tea every day. I'm drinking, cacao, you know, all healthy stuff that's putting stuff into your body that's better for me. Working
Yeah.
out, I used to come to the office every morning at whatever 4:30, quarter to 5. Now I get up in the morning and I
Mm.
do 45 minutes of a workout before I have a shower, then head to work. So investing more in me before I get to the age where I can't.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll get to a point where your body just won't be able to do it, and then that's when you start, medically and stuff like that, probably start seeing some issues. So yeah, there was a
Yeah.
big turning point. I'll tell you this: since we last spoke, I'm even booked in to go to a meditation retreat on
Hmm.
in a couple of weeks' time. Like this is something. If you'd asked me to do this a year ago, I would have went, Harold, you're having a laugh, you know.
Yeah.
But what I've done is, and through the help of people here in Civic, they've opened my eyes to, do something different. Don't be afraid, open your mind to things. Like you might actually enjoy it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different, and it's given me a new lease of life, and
Hmm.
and I feel better. I'm fitter. I lost a couple of stone. I just, ready for the next bit. Yes,
Yeah.
that was the big change. Some people say it was a midlife crisis, but I'm not agreeing to
Yeah. Again, depending on how you want to, let's say, label it. But yeah. No, I'm just joking with you. I think a very often a missed aspect for entrepreneurs and CEOs is that I like to compare it to we're athletes, but on a different playing field. And if our body is not in shape, like it's going to be hard for us to perform at the highest level. And I personally, I completely like resonate with the fact that like just working out and eating healthier helps tremendously. Like you feel better, you have more energy, and all of these things. Because like if you suddenly just stop and you do that as an experiment for let's say 3 months, revert back to your old habits for 3 months, and you're gonna feel like shit. So like
Yeah.
just having that surplus energy through the routines just it helps tremendously.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, I think if someone listening that are either an aspiring entrepreneur or an entrepreneur or a CEO, just take the time to do it, test it, do it for a month, see how you feel. Like a month isn't that long, and I can promise you, and you're also the confirmation of it, Neil. In terms of it helps, it works, it's going to give you that extra energy.
It does. You're putting crap into your body. It's not good for you.
No, not at all. In the essence of time, I have one final question for you, Neil.
Okay.
I gave a bit of a heads up about this question when we spoke last, and I also asked you about it before we started, and you said that you didn't want to mention it, so I'm a bit curious what it is, and I asked this to every single guest at the end, as a nice way to, let's say, wrap up with a question for afterthought and reflection. So the question goes like this: if you can get an answer to one question related to your business and what you do, what would it be, and what would you want to know?
Well, I had a good think about this, and it's a very good question. I suppose the first answer that came into my head was, where do all the forks go? You go down to the canteen, there's never a fork left. Where do they go? Who takes them? You know, where's the fork?
I could never have prepared for this question.
But yeah, that's great. But on a business note, I suppose, like, I don't know whether like anybody would want to know. You'd love to know what the potential is of your business. Like, you'd love to. Like, I know some people say, "Oh, there's no, like, you can't put an end on. You've got all the potential," but we only have an infinite time on this world, and we only have a certain length of time where we can do what we do, because inevitably someone else is going to have to come in and take my role that are more in tune with today's technologies and stuff like that. And I suppose. And I'd have to be sensible enough to give that to somebody at some point. And whether that's through, you know, a merger or a sale or an acquisition or whatever way it looks. But you'd just love to know, where is the potential of the business and the people in it? Where are they going to be in 10 years' time, you know, and have that answer. That's probably a little bit of comfort blanket for me. But then the next thing is you kind of go, the challenge is and the risk is not knowing, because it gives you that fight every morning. So it's a very good question. As I said, I'll stick with the forks because I still don't know where to go. We always have loads of knives and loads of spoons, but the forks seem to always go missing.
I think I have a hunch though. People just eat with a fork, but not with a knife. So the knives just keep on being there, but the forks are going away and they're not refilled in the same way as the knives.
So do you think they're taking them home, or where are they going?
I don't know. That's the question. But back to all the seriousness, I think it's like knowing the potential is a very nice thing. I guess you mentioned it could be like a comfort blanket, but I think like if you can try to look into, let's say, the looking glass to identify what potential there is, I think that could be kind of like a fire under your butt to get started, like have additional motivation and inspiration in terms of how to actually get here, and let's go for it. And then if you support the team and empower the team and you give them what they need and align them, like, then I think really beautiful things can happen.
Definitely.
Yeah. But this has been good, Neil. A bit more unscripted than what I usually do, but you requested that, and I think it went really, really good. If someone wants to reach out, learn more about yourself, about Civic, what's the best places to go?
I suppose for me, it'd be probably LinkedIn is the best place to find me on, Neil Cunningham, and then just look up Civic, or in civic.ie, www.civic.ie, and they'll find all the details about us, and reach out, and we'd be happy to have a chat.
Perfect. Yeah, we're going to try to make sure that the links are down in the show notes and the description once it's going live. But the only thing that I left out to say, Neil, is it was a pleasure, and thank you so much for taking time to be part of the podcast.
And to you, Harold, it's been great, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, we'll do.
That's
Take
great.
care then.
Thanks, Harold.